Adonai has become aware of the great outcry against them, and Adonai has sent us to destroy it. Wow. Right? That is an intense reality to kick things off. It sets the stage for one of the most dramatic rescues and total cataclysms in historical text. But to really grasp the gravity of this moment, we got to rewind just a tiny bit to Genesis chapter 18. There, Adonai says, the outcry against Sodom and Amorah is so great and their sin so serious. We see Abraham actually pleading with Adonai, asking, I hope Adonai won't be angry if I speak just once more. What if 10 are found there? And Adonai agrees, saying, for the sake of the 10, I won't destroy it. But, as we're going to see in chapter 19, the absolute destruction means there weren't even 10 good people left to be found. It was, quite literally, a city of sins.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are jumping straight into the judgment of Sodom and the flight of Lot. We're going to experience this as a super exciting, energetic narrative, a fast-paced, chronological retelling of a truly epic historical event. We've got angels in disguise, a raging mob, a totally desperate escape, and literal fire raining from the sky. Let's just step right into the text.
Section 1. The Outcry and Arrival. Evening in the City.
You know, it's actually kind of crazy how peacefully this all starts out. It's evening, and two angels, looking just like ordinary guys, arrive in Sodom. Lot happens to be sitting right at the city gate. The second he spots them, he jumps up to greet them, bows face down to the ground, and just absolutely insists on showing them some incredible hospitality. He begs them to come to his house, wash their feet, and crash for the night. Initially, the visitors are like, no, we're good, we'll just stay out here in the square. But Lot won't take no for an answer. He presses them so urgently that they finally agree. He brings them home, bakes some unleavened bread, matzah, and whips up this wonderful feast for them. It's this beautiful, calm picture of kindness. But spoiler alert, that peace, it's definitely not going to last.
Section 2. The Mob at the Door. Escalation in the Square.
Right, so before Lot and his guests can even think about going to bed, absolute disaster strikes. The men of the city completely surround the house. And guys, this isn't just a handful of troublemakers. The text explicitly points out that it's young and old, literally everyone from every single neighborhood of Sodom. It is a massive, incredibly angry mob. They start shouting out to Lot, demanding he bring his visitors outside so we may know thee, which is a phrase pointing straight to malicious and wicked intent. When Lot steps out trying to calm things down, begging them not to do such a wicked thing, the mob, they just turn all that rage right onto him. They accuse him of trying to play the judge and threaten to do even worse things to him than to his guests. They're surging forward, ready to smash the door to splinters.
And that brings us to one of the absolute most intense and frankly heavily debated moments in this whole narrative. In a totally frantic attempt to protect his guests, Lot steps out, shuts the door behind him, and actually offers this angry mob his 2 virgin daughters to do with as they please, begging them to spare the men under his roof. Now, this is a highly sensitive and argumentative verse among scholars. A lot of folks point out the complex dynamics at play here, especially since later in the text we find out Lot actually had sons-in-law already living in the city. It really just goes to show how absolutely panicked and desperate the situation had become, pushing Lot to make this unfathomable offer to an unyielding crowd.
But guess what? The mob doesn't care at all. They tell Lot to get out of the way and they rush the door. And then, bam! Supernatural intervention. The men inside, the angels, reach out their hands, yank Lot back into the safety of the house, and slam the door shut. In a stunning display of power, they strike the entire mob outside, top to bottom, small and great, with sudden, complete blindness. The mob is just left out there stumbling around in the dark. They can't even find the doorway. So the immediate threat is neutralized. But listen, the danger is far from over.
Section 3. The Urgent Warning. Flee for your life.
Inside the house, the angels give Lot a terrifying reality check. This city is doomed. They ask if he has anyone else, sons, daughters, those sons-in-law we mentioned, and tell him to get them out right now. Lot actually runs out to warn his sons-in-law, telling them, get up, leave this place, because Adonai is going to destroy the city. But they think he's joking. They literally don't take him seriously. So when morning breaks, the angels take matters into their own hands. They grab the hands of Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters and literally drag them outside the city limits because Lot is hesitating. Once they're out, the angels drop this absolute, non-negotiable command: flee for your life, don't look behind you, and don't stop anywhere in the plain, but escape to the hills. It is a very strict rule for survival.
To put that into perspective, this entire sequence happens incredibly fast.
You've got the peaceful evening arrival, the terrifying night with the mob, and then this frantic morning rush as the angels force a lingering Lot out of the city. Lot actually begs the angels not to make him run all the way to the hills. He's terrified the disaster is going to catch up to him. He pleads to just flee to a tiny nearby town instead. And mercifully, the angel agrees and spares that specific little town. By sunrise, Lot and his daughters finally make it to this town, called Zor. They made it, just in the nick of time.
Section 4. Fire, sulfur, and salt. The cataclysm.
The absolute second the sun rises, total devastation is unleashed. Adonai causes sulfur and blazing fire to literally rain down from the sky, right onto Sodom and Amorah. And we're not talking about a localized little storm here. The text makes it crystal clear. He overthrew those cities, the entire surrounding plain, all the inhabitants, and even wiped out every single thing growing in the ground. It was just this overwhelming, awe-inspiring display of ultimate power, completely wiping the slate clean of the wickedness that had totally consumed the area.
Now, here is where we see just how absolutely crucial it is to follow instructions. Remember that incredibly strict warning from earlier? Don't look behind you? Well, tragically, as they're running for their lives from this roaring destruction, Lot's wife disobeys. She looks back from behind him at the raining fire and sulfur. And instantly, she becomes a column of salt. It is the stunning, instantaneous consequence of failing to heed the angel's direct, life-saving warning.
Meanwhile, miles and miles away, Abraham gets up early that same morning. He hurries right back to the exact spot where he had stood and negotiated with Adonai. He looks out over the vast plain toward where those vibrant cities used to be, and what does he see? Just thick, billowing smoke. The text beautifully and honestly, terrifyingly describes it. The smoke was rising from the land like smoke from a massive furnace. The scale of the destruction was absolute. But there's a glimmer of hope because the text notes that God remembered Abraham, and that is exactly why he ensured Lot was sent safely away before the blast hit.
Section 5. The cave aftermath. A complex epilogue. So eventually Lot and his daughters end up living in a remote cavern, and this extreme isolation leads the daughters to formulate a pretty desperate plan. Believing they are entirely cut off from the rest of humanity, they devise a plan to ensure their lineage continues. They end up taking some extreme, highly controversial measures to make that happen. It's a stark, unvarnished piece of history that just reports the really traumatic aftermath of the city's destruction.
And as a result of those extreme actions in the cave, the historical lineage of two distinct nations is actually established. The older daughter gives birth to a son she names Moab, and he goes on to become the ancestor of the nation of Moab. The younger daughter also has a son, naming him Ben-Ami, and he becomes the ancestor of the people of Ammon. So out of the ashes of Sodom, and through this really dark, desperate cavern experience, the origins of these two historical groups are set in stone.
Which brings us to some food for thought. This is obviously a narrative of immense scale and grave consequence. But as we step back and look at everything that happened, what's the ultimate takeaway here? The moral of Genesis 19 is this: obey God's warnings, and all evil will come to an end. Whether it's the instruction to flee to the hills or the strict command not to look back, listening to those warnings is the absolute key to survival.
Like, share, and subscribe.